Pay's checkout is offered by your banks and credit unions. So when you shop online at participating merchants, your cards appear in one place. Pay's. It checks out. Activation required. See Pays.com to learn more. Terms and conditions apply.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Ow.
Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parent.
The Box of Oddities.
Oh my God, you guys. You gotta hear this story. Tell the story.
It's awful.
It's wonderful.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So we're in northern Maine, obviously, and I was going to Madawaska to pick up some groceries, and I figured I'd poke around a little bit. You were having a nap, so I had some time, you know?
And Madawaska is right next to the Canadian border. I mean, there's a river between Canada and the town of Madawaska.
So I was coming into Madawaska and I thought to myself, I'll see if there's a thrift store here. So I asked Siri to find me a thrift store and she found one and she put the directions on and I was like, fine. So I was following the directions as one does. And then it took me kind of on this weird loop-de-loo up to a bridge.
And you find yourself on the bridge and you are heading toward the Canadian customs check.
Yes, I was going to Canada and I was like, oh shit, this isn't what I meant to do, but I guess I'm committed now because there's no whoop-de-woo. You know, you can't just whoop whoop. And if you did, I feel like that might look a little suspicious. So, but I was like, okay, well, I don't have a passport or anything with me anyway. They'll probably just make me turn around.
That wasn't the case.
No. So what happened was I got up to the window and the man asked for my ID and I gave it to him. And he said, do you have any weapons on you? And I said, I have pepper spray. And he said, yeah, that's not allowed. And so I had to give it to him. And he said that I'd have to fill out a form so I could pick it up on my way back in. Fine, great. And then he said, do you have any other weapons? And I said, no. So then I had to swoop around to the area where I could then go in and fill out this paperwork. And as I was going in, two guys were coming out and they were like, well, we're going to search your car. And I said, okay. So I filled out the paperwork and I came out. They have my hood open. They have the back gate open. They're going through everything. And then one of them comes toward me and says, what's this? And it was my stun gun.
It was your stun gun. Here's where the story gets really interesting.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot that was in there because it's not been working. I couldn't get it to charge, which is why I bought the pepper spray in the first place. And he said, yeah, this isn't allowed here. And I was like, I'm really sorry. And they were like, okay, can you bring your purse over here? We're going to go through your purse. So they're going through my purse. They pulled out my keys, which of course has a knife. And he kind of gives me this look. And I was like, I hike a lot. And he was like, no, this is okay. And I was like, okay, fine. And he was like, but this, and he holds the stun gun up to me and he said, this is a problem. I'm like, okay. So we have to go inside. I'm asked to sit in the waiting area while they convene. And I can hear them all speaking in French and they're going over my address and I can understand some things like, you know, suspicioso or whatever in French. And then they call me back over and he said, okay, so this is a problem. And I was like, okay. And at this point, my heart rate is jacked up. I'm shaking. I am really concerned because he had said that there's the possibility of a fine and I didn't intend to go to Canada in the first place. So he pulls me out and he's like, okay, so this is an arrestable offense. You did not declare a weapon that is not allowed in Canada. And I was like, oh God, okay. So I didn't know. And nor did I intend to break the rules. This was not intentional. I wasn't trying to sneak anything in. And so he's like, another The other officer that you spoke with, that you declared the pepper spray to, he said that you declared that right away, and that when he asked if you had any other weapons, you did consider it. And so to us, that says that you thought about whether or not you had weapons on you. You determined that you did not, and that you were being honest. You were just wrong. And I said, yes, I was very wrong. I'm so sorry. And then he let me know that another officer might have made a different decision, but I was not going to be arrested or fined. I love you, Canada. You're so nice and kind, and I did not intend to be disrespectful or break your laws in any way. I think also that the fact that I was visibly shaken and I had started to tear up a little bit was like, oh, okay, this woman's just an idiot.
And here's the kicker. They let her into Canada with her true ID, driver's license, but the U.S. won't allow you back in with a true ID.
You're supposed to have like a passport or something. But I didn't intend to go to Canada, so I didn't have one with me. So after I left the Canadian entry point, I went to the thrift store, which was closed, by the way, not open on Sundays.
Perfect.
So I just headed back. I picked up my pepper spray and I headed back across the bridge, where I met the U.S. Customs guy who was like, passport? And I said, yeah, I don't have it. And he said, do you have a birth certificate with you? And I said, no. I didn't intend to go to Canada today. So I can hear him clickety-clacketing on the computer. And he said, why does it say that you have 2 passports? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have 2 passports. And he said, you don't. And then just stared at me silently. And I said, no, I have an Ecuadorian ID. And he said, and why would you have that? And I was like, well, I had a tourist visa. I lived there for a couple of years. And he went, where were you born? And so I answered, and he said, where are you visiting? And so I told him, and he said, why? And I told him, and he said, and where do you live? And so I told him, and he said, and where were you born again? And I told him, and then he was like, okay, thank you. And he handed me my license back, and I was on my way.
Weeping all of the way back into the U.S.
No, I didn't cry until I got to the Martin's parking lot. I sat in a salvage store parking lot and cried because I felt I was safe there.
I've cried in a salvage store parking lot many times. It had nothing to do with international weapon smuggling.
There were so many mistakes made, and it's just, I was so lackadaisical about the whole scenario. And you know how I can be spontaneous, and I'm like, yeah, let's just do this thing, whatever. And it's just, I should have approached it with I should have had a more thoughtful approach about it. But it was just like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing. And then all of that. And it was like, I was in Canada for about a half hour. And in that time, I was threatened with arrest. It was awful.
You had your stun gun confiscated. Oh, what a day. You did see a wild grouse, though.
I did. I told them they could keep the stun gun because it didn't work anyway. But they were like, no, we're keeping it. And I was like, oh, okay. That wasn't really a choice that I made just now. I see. But I did see a grouse.
So all's well that ends well, as the youngsters say. All right.
I'm an idiot.
To the business at hand. Imagine pouring yourself a cup of coffee and watching the steam leave the pot, except the coffee doesn't seem to fall. For a minute, it appears frozen. And then you look down, and the cup is suddenly full. There was no smooth rise of liquid, no visual warning that you were getting close to the top of the cup. One moment, there was room in the cup, and the next minute, there wasn't.
Like a time slip?
Kind of like a time slip, or almost like your brain is rebuffering.
Speaking of which, would you mind if I refilled my coffee?
Go right ahead. Now imagine you're trying to cross a street with that same problem. You look, you see a car in the distance. You look again, and the car's much closer. And somehow the part in between has vanished. It's just beep, beep, like it's been totally edited out.
That's really scary. It's also kind of like Jimothy's midsection.
Somehow, The part in between is totally gone. This is the world of a woman known to medical science only by the initials LM. Her case revealed something deeply strange about an experience most of us never think about. Seeing something and seeing it move may be two completely different abilities.
I've never considered that.
It's like a glitch in the Matrix. LM was 43 years old when she was admitted to a hospital in Munich in October of 1978. She had been suffering from severe headaches and vertigo. The doctors eventually discovered a thrombosis involving a major vein that drains blood from her brain. It caused damage to both sides of the rear portion of her brain. And when she recovered, LM could still see, and this is what makes her story even more extraordinary. She could recognize objects and faces. She could distinguish between shapes. Her vision was essentially intact. Her depth perception was good. She could read. If you placed a cup of coffee on the table, she saw the cup of coffee. But when it moved across the table, something very strange was happening. Something was terribly wrong. She could tell that its position had changed, but she couldn't reliably experience the smooth journey from one spot to another.
That's so strange, and something that I guess I take for granted.
In 1983, neurologists Josef Ziel von Kramol, I don't know if
was sexy.
I don't know if I pronounced that anywhere near correctly.
I liked it.
And N. Mai published a study of LM in the journal Brain. What they described was an extraordinary selective disturbance of visual motion perception. Today it's referred to as motion blindness. And everyday life had become very bizarre for her, as you could imagine. Pouring coffee or tea or water was difficult because LM couldn't properly see the liquid rising in the container. She had to develop a trick. Instead of watching the movement, she used her intact perception of distance and learned to stop pouring when the liquid appeared roughly a centimeter below the rim. Strange. Crossing a street, of course, that was frightening.
That's so much smarter, because I would have just plooped my finger in it. Like, bloop, liquid. That's full enough.
Normally, you don't consciously calculate the speed of an approaching car, so that is something she had to learn how to do to stay, well, alive. She could not trust the system anymore. She eventually learned to use sound to help estimate how far away moving vehicles were. Even sitting in a room full of people could be unsettling. If several people were moving around, they could seem to occupy one position and then another without her experiencing the movement connecting those two positions. It's like somebody just blinking in and out of reality.
That feels very unnatural and creepy to me.
Imagine conversations. That became pretty strange. Think about how much information is constantly moving across another person's face when they speak. Their lips form words, their eyes will shift, eyebrows, facial expressions appear, disappear. Not always, in her case. Years later, researchers tested LM's ability to read speech visually and found she could recognize information from still photographs of faces fairly well, yet struggled badly when she had to follow the continuous movement of natural speech.
So her refresh rate was crap.
Exactly what I would call it, yes, a crappy refresh rate. Not a gaming face. It's almost like reality had lost some of the glue holding one moment to the next. But LM was not living inside a perfect slideshow. Her motion vision wasn't completely gone. Researchers discovered that under controlled conditions, she could perceive some very slow movement, particularly near the center of her vision. As objects moved faster, though, her ability to perceive that motion fell apart.
I have never considered that this might be a thing.
And the thing is, her eyes weren't the problem. The light was reaching them. Mm-hmm. Her retinas were collecting the visual information.
Right, she was seeing still things just fine.
Her brain could construct color and form and depth and all of that stuff, but damage to the areas around this particular part of her cortex had devastated the machinery involved in constructing motion part. We tend to imagine vision as a camera, Light enters the eye and the brain receives a picture of what's outside, but that's really not what's going on. Your brain is assembling the world for you. We've talked about this actually quite a bit in the last few episodes that I have done. Color is processed and depth is calculated. Face is recognized. Motion, the smooth flow you experience when a bird crosses the sky, is something the visual system has to derive from changing information. Your brain stitches those stills together.
Thank you, brain.
A 2025 systematic review examined dozens of clinical and experimentally induced cases of motion blindness and related disturbances. We now know the condition can appear in different forms and degrees. Some people report motion as a sequence of disconnected positions or freeze frame like jumps. Others lose particular kinds of motion perception. If you look around the room, do it right now. Look around the room, find something that's moving. Maybe the clock or the ceiling fan. It feels completely obvious that you're watching movement because movement is happening out there in the world. Of course it is. But the experience of that movement, the seamless journey from here to there, only exists because a piece of tissue inside your skull is stitching those changing moments together.
I would imagine that people who suffer from this have an extraordinarily shortened life expectancy because movement and being able to detect it is so much a part of our lives.
Yeah, I don't know, but that would make sense.
Like you said, driving?
Forget it. Every time you watch someone cross a room, rainfall past a street lighter, or as I mentioned, the coffee rising in your cup to the rim, your brain is performing a small miracle effortlessly, so effortlessly that you've probably never even noticed it.
Nope.
Because when the machinery is working perfectly, reality doesn't feel constructed. It feels real, but it's constructed. My information, Oxford Academic Studies, Frontier in Neurology and PubMed.
You know, my grandfather was an old Mainer, and he used to always say, when the crickets sing louder at dusk, autumn ain't far behind. Me, I just look at a calendar, and I can't believe that August is here already. It's a perfect time to hit reset for the autumn rush. Quince proves you don't need a crowded closet to look incredible. You just need the right pieces. Are you familiar with Quince? They specialize in effortless, high-quality essentials like ultra-soft organic cotton and premium Mongolian cashmere sweaters. They're beautifully tailored, they're built to last, and it is a perfect transition from morning meeting to dinner. Kat looks so cute in her cashmere sweater. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middleman, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. And I'm not exaggerating when I say my favorite shirts are Quince, but I also love their shorts. And the thing that I was really surprised about when we first started getting Quince clothing is the high quality, and the price is just so unbelievably affordable. And they also bring the same everyday elevation to everything they offer. Kat's also a big fan of the hotel quality linen pillowcases. Upgrade your everyday. Download the Quince app for an app exclusive offer or go to quince.com/oddities. Get free shipping on your orders and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada and the UK too. That's QUINCE.com/oddities.
Pay's checkout is offered by your banks and credit unions. So when you shop online at participating merchants, your cards appear in one place, ready to use and kept up to date. And the best part, your actual card number isn't shared when you check out because boundaries are healthy, like no work emails after 6. One small step for boundaries, one big leap for checkout. Pay's, it checks out. Activation required. See Pays.com to learn more. Terms and conditions apply.
And now, that thing in the middle.
The year was 1838. General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna, the president of Mexico, was in the midst of a battle when suddenly, boom, his ankle was blown off by a cannonball. One leg down. Did Santa Anna succumb to his sorrow and defeat? Oh no, my friends. Instead, he did something that can only be described as legendary. He ordered a full military burial for his leg. Picture the scene: soldiers solemnly marching, flags flying at half-mast, a bugler playing a mournful tune, and a leg-shaped casket draped in the most distinguished military fashion. Oh, General Santa Anna, you certainly knew how to march to a different beat. But who am I to judge? After all, it takes a special kind of person to turn a tragedy into a military spectacle.
Pay's checkout is offered by your banks and credit unions. So when you shop online at participating merchants, your cards appear in one place, ready to use and kept up to date. And the best part, your actual card number isn't shared when you check out, because boundaries are healthy, like no work emails after 6. One small step for boundaries, one big leap for checkout. Pay's, it checks out. Activation required. See Pays.com to learn more. Terms and conditions apply.
Get your tickets now for the Dog Stars.
It's no surprise how fast civilization can disappear. Out there, it's kill or be killed.
Jacob Elordi.
There are people out there. They need our help.
Josh Brolin.
Shoot first and inquire afterwards.
Margaret Qualley.
Okay, tough guy.
And Guy Pearce.
Arm up!
The Dog Stars, directed by Ridley Scott. In theaters August 28th. Get tickets now. Rated R. Under 17. Not admitted without parent.
The one podcast that everyone in the family can agree on during a long summer trip in the car, except Aunt Jean. You know what? Fuck Aunt Jean. This is the Box of Oddities.
Richard Hanchett was a retired man living in the Detroit suburb of Waterford. By all accounts, he led a happy childhood. He'd been adopted as a baby, and he said he had a very happy life with the couple who raised him. But like a lot of adopted children, he became curious about the woman who'd given birth to him, especially as he got older and his adoptive parents passed away. It became more and more important, and he wanted to know his roots. So he began looking. In 2018, a DNA test finally gave him something to work with. Genetic results connected him with biological relatives that he'd never known existed. And for the first time, he began piecing together the story of the family that he came from, and eventually learned his biological mother's name, Ruth Marie Terry. And then, Hanchett learned something else. Ruth hadn't simply disappeared from his life. She had disappeared from everyone's lives nearly 50 years before. And Hanchett had stumbled into one of the most notorious unidentified person mysteries in Massachusetts history. Because for almost half a century, the woman Hanchett knew only as his biological mother had been known to the public by another name, the Lady of the Dunes.
Ooh, okay, I'm locked in. Go ahead.
So let's go back to 1974. At the time, nobody knew the name of the woman Hanchett would eventually discover was his biological mother. In fact, for nearly 50 years, nobody knew her name at all. The Lady of the Dunes was found in July of 1974. A family was walking through the dunes near Race Point in Provincetown, Massachusetts, when they came across a woman naked on the beach with her hands severed. Officials believed that was so she couldn't be identified by her fingerprints. Her skull had been crushed, and she was nearly decapitated. The cause of death was determined to be a blow to the head, and authorities believe she was killed several weeks before her body was found. Investigators determined pretty easily she'd been murdered. There were no identification documents, no purse, no obvious personal belongings that could tell police who she was. And there was something particularly unusual about the location. The dunes were secluded enough that someone could be murdered there and remain undiscovered for some time, but close enough to a popular beach so that the discovery wasn't entirely unexpected. Police began trying to determine who the woman was. They checked missing person reports, they circulated descriptions, what they could make of one, and developed a composite sketch. But nobody came forward to identify her.
And I'm assuming that the body washed in because it had been dead for so long and it was in a well-traveled area. It was either that or somebody killed her a long time ago and then relocated the body.
Neither of those assumptions would be true. She was found on a beach blanket on one side as though she'd been sharing it with somebody else, and it was thought she was killed where she was found.
That's confusing.
A lot about this case was confusing. And that's one of the reasons why, for decades, she remained unidentified. And she became one of the oldest unidentified murder victims in Massachusetts. There were plenty of theories about who she might have been, but there was one thing that investigators couldn't establish: her name. Until Richard began looking for answers of his own. In 2018, Richard Hanchet's fiancée gave him a DNA testing kit. He took the test, sent it off, and when the results came back, he discovered something that he'd never known about himself. He had an enormous biological family in Tennessee on his mother's side. So he traveled down for a family reunion and met relatives for the first time. But there was one person that they could not introduce him to: his biological mother. She'd been missing since 1974. For years, no one had known what had happened to Ruth Marie Terry. She'd been 37 when she disappeared. Relatives in Tennessee told Richard that the last time they'd seen her, she was with her new husband, Guy Rockwell Moldavin. The couple had married in Reno a year or two earlier. And then, nothing. No one had heard from Ruth since. Some of Richard's newfound relatives had wondered if she entered a witness protection program. It was just so odd that she just disappeared.
And nobody reached out to her husband? Or was he unreachable?
Well, remember, it was 1974. It's not like they could Facebook him. And she was obviously traveling a lot. She was in Reno, she was in Massachusetts, she was in Tennessee. So Richard was left with a mystery that had existed long before he ever knew that it was connected to him. And then one day, the FBI called. They told him that his mother had been identified. Of course, this is all very confusing, but she was the woman who'd spent nearly half a century known only as the Lady of the Dunes.
Okay, how did they put those pieces together?
Well, investigators were interested in everything that he knew about his mother. And of course, everything that he was learning about his mother was only from this family reunion that he'd just had. And Richard had never heard of this case.
So information was flying fast and furious at him.
What they learned is that Terry was just 21 when in 1958 she entrusted a couple with whom she worked at an assembly plant in Michigan with her infant son. So that's where Richard went to live. And Terry's relatives had a different version of where she said she was going after her last visit to Tennessee in the summer of 73. Like I said, there was no clear information.
And you're right, technology in that day was nothing like it is now.
Now, court records showed that it was just 5 months before her death that she'd married Guy Moldavin, a former antiques dealer from Reno. And feds named him as their prime suspect just days after identifying Terry. It was August of 2023 when Capes and Islands District Attorney announced that Mr. Moldavin was responsible for Ruth Terry's 1974 death.
Of course he was.
49 years later.
Whew.
Through investigative efforts, the Massachusetts State Police learned that Miss Terry and Mr. Moldavin traveled during the summer of 1974. This is according to the district attorney. When Mr. Moldavin returned from that trip, he was driving what was believed to be Miss Terry's vehicle and had indicated to witnesses that she'd passed away. And that was it.
No follow-up. Wow.
Per the DA's press release, Miss Terry was never seen by her family again. Terry's brother reportedly questioned Moldavin about the woman's whereabouts. However, he claimed that he and Terry fought on their honeymoon and that he'd never heard from her again.
Mm-hmm. Wow, 49 years.
Moldavin, though determined to have been responsible for Terry's death, didn't pay for it, as he died before Terry was identified. In the years following her murder, he was married and divorced, evicted from his trailer home, and lived with prostate cancer until his death in 2002. So at least there's that.
Small blessings.
Once again, a mystery solved because of home DNA tests. She was the Lady of the Dunes, an unidentified woman, a mystery on the Massachusetts shoreline, and all that time her son was living his life in Michigan, not knowing that the mother he'd spent decades wondering about was the center of one of the country's most enduring mysteries. It took a DNA test, a family reunion, and a long chain of people searching for answers to finally give her back her name. And I think this part is really interesting. Oddly, Richard Hanchett told Oxygen.com that he'd dreamt of his mother's murder in the weeks leading up to the identity of the Lady of the Dunes being determined.
Did he have any specifics?
There was one unpleasant specific about her head being bashed in, yeah.
Oh, boy.
So that's incredibly strange, I think.
That's very, very odd. And who knows?
I got my information from Oxygen.com, Wikipedia, obviously, the Detroit News, and NBC Boston.
Thank you for liking the show, subscribing, sharing it with your friends. We appreciate the support. It really helps us, as this is all we do. This is what we do for a living.
Somebody sent us a message the other day and said that they sent their friend the Alpha Gal Syndrome episode because their friend had suddenly become very sick after eating meat. And they were like, see, you're solving mysteries all over the place. So maybe you have a friend who might like the podcast. Who knows?
TheBoxOfOddities.com.
Though I hope that you don't necessarily have to send the podcast to your friend because they're sick. I hope none of your friends are sick. That's not what I'm saying.
We'll see you next time.
I hope all your friends are well. Keep flying that freak flag.
Fly it proudly, you beautiful freak.
And so, let it be known that the Box of Oddities belongs to you, and its fate is in your hands. Therefore, it's been requested by those to whom I report to beseech you for assistance. We ask but one thing of you, to provide a 5-star rating and a positive review. True, that is 2 things. However, 'tis merely a 5-star rating and a positive review. Also, subscribe to us. Okay, so 3 things is all we ask. 3 things and 3 things only. Henceforth, the Box of Oddities commits to the telling of stories. Stories of the strange, the bizarre, the unexpected. We wish to offer our deeply felt gratitude and appreciation for your patronage. TheBoxOfOddities.com. Copyright 2026, all rights reserved.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
I'm not giving up. I am selling the building.
The final season of FX's The Bear.
The restaurant is flooded.
Everything's either going to be okay.
Or not.
We are outgunned and we are outmanned, but we have each other.
FX's The Bear, the final season. All episodes now streaming on Disney+.